evening. I want to thank you for joining us today. It's a very important event. We've got a great lineup of speakers and guests who's going to be talking to us about what's going on in the Congo and also what's happening in Haiti. These are, parts of our continent and our Caribbean parts of the world that doesn't get the exposure on the television that it ought to, because obviously it suits the interests of the power that be that we don't know what's going on. So that's why it's important that we come together and we speak about what's happening in those regions. When I last spoke with our brother Sean from Haiti, he was saying to me that the way that Haitians are being treated in the Dominican Republic right now, it's as if they're hunting animals, he said. He said the country, the relations between the two countries has been cut off. And because of that, the Haitians started to organize themselves, and the Dominicans chased the women and the Haitians into the river. The women are being chased out of the hospitals, major atrocities that is happening even to babies. And we're going to be hearing about what's happening in Haiti because, we're the ones who are going to have to stand with our brothers and sisters of Haiti. Welcome, welcome. We are delighted. We are privileged to have in the house Myrtha Désulmé, who is the president of the Haiti Jamaica Society and a business and investment consultant for Haiti. She makes the case for Haiti to be at the center of the reparations movement. She critiques CARICOM's decision to require Haitians to have visas and to have visas to travel across the region, the only CARICOM member being required to do so. And so she comes to us today to speak on behalf of Haiti and us as a people. We welcome you. We thank you so, so much for joining us today.
Good morning, all. Hotep. I'm Myrtha Désulmé. I'm Haitian, but my family has lived in Jamaica since I was a child. Even though I myself have lived in many other places, but I'm a naturalized Jamaican. As the sister Shanice was explaining, I am president and founder of the Haiti Jamaica Society, a director of the Haitian Diaspora Organization, the Haitian Forum for Peace and Sustainable Development, and I represent Haiti in the Caribbean Pan-African Network Executive, and I represent the Haitian diaspora in the executive of the Montana Group, which is the foremost Haitian civil society group in search of a Haitian solution to liberate Haiti. I will start by asking that we observe a moment of silence for the women and girls of Haiti, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Gaza, who have lost and continue to lose their lives and their dignity to the horrendous reality of senseless violence and men's inhumanity to men, which they face on a daily basis. Thank you. There are no more words to express the horrors which have become the daily reality of Haitians. An entire nation is being massacred while the world stands aside and looks. The calamity that is unfolding in Haiti did not flare up by spontaneous combustion. It is the result of a plan of extermination which has been 200 years in the making, since Haiti dared to shatter the foundations of the World Economic Order, which was based on the heinous crime of slavery. The hegemonic powers are waging a war of repression against the Haitian people through a reign of terror led by heavily armed gangs sustained by Haiti's de facto government and local oligarchy. The cynical game which is being played is that while meeting after meeting is held from Paris to Washington through Los Angeles, Nassau, Montreal, and Kingston to supposedly find a solution to the Haitian crisis, quote unquote. International diplomacy continues to provide its unwavering support to the very source of the crisis, an illegitimate, unelected dictator who does not represent the Haitian people, but whose job is to ensure that the violence and bloodshed continue unabated so he can remain in power and justify a pending military intervention. De facto Prime Minister Ariel Henry has also been officially implicated in the assassination of his predecessor, President Jovenel Moïse. Without external support, the Henry regime will immediately collapse. This planned chaos is the setting of an egregiously dangerous space for Haitian women and girls who lead lives of daily atrocities. The UN's 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which, by the way, came 144 years after Haiti's 1804 Declaration of Human Rights by Jean-Jacques Dessalines, famously proclaims that every human being has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Yet those words don't seem to apply to the Haitian people, least of all to Haitian women who are habitually beaten and raped by their spouses. Young girls suffer all kinds of sexual abuse from their teachers, from family members who have authority over them, as well as from other males in the home. On average, 7 Haitian women per day are victims of gender-based violence. In underprivileged neighborhoods, women have no rights whatsoever. They have no access to basic social services, as the state completely flouts the Haitian people's rights to education, health, decent housing, and employment. Since 2018, these underprivileged neighborhoods have been the scene of clashes between armed gangs who, under cover of hegemonic struggles, defend political, electoral, and economic interests. During these clashes, women are murdered at the same rate as men, but in addition, they're routinely subjected to gang rapes. Women's bodies have become a battlefield, and rape is a weapon of war. Gang leaders consider it their prerogative to rape women who live in their garrisons at will, and rival gangs deem the rape of their enemies' women to be a trophy of war. Under the indifferent gaze of the de facto dictatorship, vicious gangs burn down entire neighborhoods and terrorize residents are forced to flee for their lives to escape the ensuing armed conflicts. During these massacres, women are chased all the way to the very public squares where they take refuge to be raped again and again. They're even raped on the roads in full view of everyone. Young girls and children do not escape this brutality. Most survivors face insurmountable obstacles before they can start recovering physically and mentally. And that's if they aren't raped a second or third time. 15 people are kidnapped every day on average in Haiti, and women are in their number. They are not only kidnapped for ransom, but they're also raped by their kidnappers. There is only one prison for women and girls in the whole of Haiti. In the other 18 functional prisons, prisoners are only separated by cells, and women are often raped by male prisoners with the passive complicity of the authorities. 82.5% of incarcerated women find themselves in pretrial detention, compared to 82.6% of men, and can spend up to 15 years awaiting trial without being taken to court. They're subjected to inhumane conditions, living in dimly lit cells with no ventilation. They have no access to recreation, hygiene products, or medical care, and are exposed to all sorts of contagious diseases. But these are the statistics, brothers and sisters. But statistics don't tell the whole story. I believe that the best way to illustrate the unimaginable suffering and degradation of the lives of these women is to hear it from the women themselves. You will hear the harrowing testimony of 3 survivors of Cité Soleil, one of the worst slums in the world, on the outskirts of the capital city of Port-au-Prince, that is entirely controlled by gangs. Their experiences reflect those of an untold number of women who, just like them, confront impossible challenges and dangers every day just to keep themselves and their children alive. I will start with the story of Carrie. First, Carrie, a 39-year-old resident of Cité Soleil, lost her baby to a stray bullet. Less than a year later, in June 2021, her husband was shot by criminals while fishing on his canoe. Carrie was still trying to recover from those tragedies when the bloody events of July 2022 unfolded. That month, 10 days of heavy gang warfare in the seaside shantytown left nearly 500 people wounded, missing, or dead. Multiple sexual assaults were registered, and 3,000 people fled their homes, Carrie and 4 of her children among them. My life became hell on the 8th of July, 2022, says Carrie. Gang members burned my house down and were violent towards me. I wasn't a victim of sexual violence then, but they raped a young woman who was living in the house. I lost all of my important documents. Since the death of her husband, Carrie has been struggling to meet her children's needs. She earned a little money selling goods, fish, rice, and pepper shrimps, but the attack of July 2022 left her with nothing. Helpless, she fled the neighborhood with a group of people. To do so, they had to cross an area called Deyemu, which means behind the wall in Creole, known to be the frontier between 2 gang territories. It is also the only way out, in and out of the Brooklyn neighborhood of Cité Soleil where she lived. As I was walking in Deyemu with other people because there was no public transportation, men from the area grabbed us and raped us, she says. I was also hit by a bullet and my leg still hasn't healed. When it rains, the pain dominates me. Carrie spent some time living in the street in the Plaza Hugo Chavez, a public square in the center of Port-au-Prince, where thousands of Haitians fleeing from violence had settled in an improvised camp. She had managed to take a few things from her house to sell, but the precarity of her situation pushed her to leave for the Dominican Republic with her 2 youngest children, aged 17 and 11. She didn't last long in the neighboring country, as her children were not allowed to attend school there. 3 months later, they returned to Port-au-Prince. Back home, she started trading again, as many women do to survive. On Tuesday, the 14th of March, she took a bus with 16 other women she used to sell products with. Their destination was Arcahaie, a town 25 miles northwest of the capital. Traveling out of Cité Soleil is not safe, but Carrie didn't have a choice. Business had started to slow down, and she had borrowed the equivalent of $140, only managing to pay back $18. While I was going to Arcahaie, arriving at Source Matla, a neighborhood north of the capital where there had been a series of violent gang raids in the past few months, some bandits stopped the bus I was on and ordered us to get down and follow a funeral. After the funeral, she and the women were kidnapped by the men who had forced them out of the bus. We entered a house. They asked for our IDs. I told them that I had come to sell, that I had no ID with me. They pushed us and said that we surely lived in the area of Gabriel, one of Cité Soleil's gang leaders. You are thieves, we're going to kill you, they told us. The men kept them captive for 3 days, beating and raping them repeatedly. They did everything they shouldn't do to us, said Carrie, recalled. When I was still conscious, I counted 7 men. I am asthmatic, and although I had an asthma attack, they kept beating me, she said. She ended up passing out, but that didn't stop her assailants either. When I regained consciousness, I saw young men who could have been my children raping me. I told them, if you want to kill me, you can do it. Even if I have young children, God will continue to watch over them. It's better that you kill me. Sorry.
Painful story. Painful story.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we understand. We understand. And unless we hear it, we just don't know. We've got no idea. We go about our daily lives and we have no idea what's going on. This is why, it's so important, for us to expose what's happening. And then also very importantly to hear what we can do. What can we do to help?
During those 3 days, the women had to do the gang members' laundry. They barely ate. The men constantly told their captives they would kill them and continue to rape them until the 4th night came. After all that, they changed their tune and asked us if we wanted to stay with them. I told them that I have 4 children without a father. We spoke to them at length. In the end, they released us naked. As we left, people of goodwill in the area gave us clothes to put on. It took Carrie 8 hours to reach her mother for help. Carrie's mother bought medicinal leaves to take care of her wounds. The window to take medication to prevent unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases is 72 hours. But 15 days passed before a friend convinced Carrie to go to the hospital. There she received medication for an infection, but she still hasn't fully recovered. Carrie hasn't been to the police to file a complaint. She doesn't believe it will make any difference. There is no justice, she says. Since the kidnapping, Carrie lives in extreme poverty. The gang members stole all the goods she planned to sell, which means that she has no money to resume her business. She still has to pay her debt and is now also responsible for her fifth child as well, a 6-year-old girl who hadn't been living with her before. Carrie doesn't have enough money to pay for rent, so they live in a camp set up in a school. When it rains, they must spend the night standing up or sleep under the water. To eat, they depend on a priest who distributes food. For water, they rely on rain. Pressed by their desperation, even for basic food needs, her 20-year-old son, the eldest, dropped out of school to go fishing. Carrie blames the authorities for her situation and for leaving her no other option than to risk her life to survive. We who are from Brooklyn have never heard the Haitian state say anything about the violence we endure every day. They have never once condemned these daily violent attacks on us. If we had enough money, we would not be forced to live in the streets. We know that whenever we encounter the gang members, there is also the chance that they will kill us. Since suffering the rapes, Carrie has been struggling psychologically. The only support she has found is the women's organization called Neges Maron, which means maroon negress in English. But in past few weeks, the rising gang-related violence has prevented her from reaching the organization, which is located in a neighborhood outside of the Cité Soleil. She says she feels ashamed of what has happened to her and can't overcome the trauma of her assaults. I intended to hurt myself because I could no longer stand living in these terrible circumstances. The violence I suffered in Sauce Matla is the one affecting me the most. When she remembers what happened to her, she can't hold back her tears. I was a fat person. I magered down to what you see me now. They took my business, they beat me, and they raped me. I demand justice from the authorities. We have nothing and are asking for security. In Cité Soleil, every day is pure suffering. We can't find any help anywhere. Everywhere is war. Now, Madeline, the second testimony comes from Madeline. The day she was raped, Madeline, a 16-year-old girl from Cité Soleil, had decided it was time to help her parents make some money. The situation was desperate. They barely had any food or clean water, and her school had been closed after several students got hit by bullets on their way back home after classes. My parents had set aside some money to pay for my education, but the school had to close down, so I asked them for the money, she said. They gave her 2,500 gourds, the equivalent of $18. With that, she bought cloves and pepper shrimp to sell outside the capital in Arcae with a group of women. They reached the town and spent the whole day working. Then came the trip back to Port-au-Prince. That day, we had been walking in the sun, selling all day, and were thirsty. After we finished, we were heading home when a group of armed men stopped the bus we were on. It was the 28th of March, 2023, Madeline recalled. They drove the bus into the undergrowth. Then they beat us. Some of us were killed, and we asked to be spared. They took us, they tore off our clothes, and they raped us. They abused us so much that I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I saw that I was soaked in blood. Madeline and her companions were taken hostage for 3 days. She doesn't remember how many men sexually abused her, but she knows that they took turns. They then forced their captive to do their laundry and later released them naked. After the rapes, Madeline was taken to a hospital, but not soon enough to be given emergency contraception. She was told that she was pregnant. I'm very sad and in a lot of pain. I'm now pregnant and I have no help and no relief. My mother has no money, nor does my father. My mother keeps crying. She doesn't see what she's going to be able to do. My father has not said a word. They are heartbroken. Where I live, if it is blocked off, we will not be able to find any water to drink. There is only one road for access. Even food we cannot find. Since the rapes, Madeline has been feeling dizzy and having suicidal thoughts. Several times I took up bleach water to drink. There's always someone who sees me and takes it from my hands to throw it away and tries to encourage me to keep on living. If I find help, I will move elsewhere. I hope that in the future I can leave here and have a different life. As long as you live in Cité Soleil, You always think that you can get hit by a stray bullet, that you could be a victim at any moment. I hope that one day I will be free, that I will no longer be under the heel of the gangs. The third and last testimony is from Tamara. At 24, Tamara never had an easy life. She has taken care of herself since the age of 15 when she had her first child. She was barely managing to get by. By the time she met her husband, she was already a mother of 2. She started a new life with him, had another child, and he supported them all. They lived in Cité Soleil. On the night of the 8th of July, 2022, they were awoken by violent clashes that erupted between gangs in the area. Her husband didn't want to try to flee because he thought it wasn't safe, but she convinced him that they needed to go. The men invaded our neighborhood. People were shot dead. They also set all the houses on fire. People were running everywhere. I didn't want to die in the house. I had to leave, says Tamara. They took the children and left their home with nothing but the clothes on their backs. They walked for hours, but when they reached their gang members stopped them. Tamara, in tears, recalled what happened next when they spoke to her husband. The man said, "Here's someone who has put his gun down. He's running away because he sees that he's going to die." While they were talking to him, some of them took me aside and 2 of them raped me on the grass. I looked at the children on the ground crying. I felt that I was no longer alive. After that, Tamara asked for her husband. They told her to follow them. She found him severely beaten and could barely recognize him. When she went to him, the gang members hit her on the head and she lost consciousness. What she saw when she woke up is a trauma she will never overcome. Her husband's body was completely burnt into charred remains. Then I took the 3 children and left. I went to Hugo Chavez Square. I stayed there for 4 months, living destitute on the street. I was selling water, begging for money. I worked with food vendors near the airport. I was doing everything I could to survive. On the 25th of September, 2022, Tamara was raped again. That day, her children, who are now 9, 6, and 1, had not eaten and were crying. They were hungry. The baby had fallen ill because of the rain. So I arranged a bed for her and told the older ones to watch over her. It must have been 6 or 7 p.m. I went out and spoke to a man who asked me what my problem was and if he could help me. Tamara explained her situation and the man offered to buy her food and give her some money. She followed him until 4 different men stopped them and the original man ran away. She would later understand that it was all part of a setup. When her captors took her to the nearby undergrowth, the man who had originally offered to help her was waiting for them. He was sitting down and asked me, "Am I your father to feed you? I don't even know you." He started insulting me, Tamara said. They asked me to undress, and one said he would put a knife to my throat. Facing 5 men, I couldn't fight, and there was no help around. 3 of them brutally raped her. After all of this, I told myself I had to die, said Tamara. While I was looking for a place to kill myself, I heard several voices in my head. Some voices told me to kill myself. Others told me that my life was not over. I finally got dressed and left. 3 months later, she found out that she was pregnant and decided, despite her religious beliefs, to terminate her pregnancy. I decided that I could not be pregnant. I live in a country where I would find absolutely no support. I already have 3 children who have no father, so I was forced to make the sacrifice. I drank a mixture that caused me to lose the child. I almost died, and now everything is a problem. I had to do things in my life which I never believed in. Tamara still struggles with the medical consequences of her self-managed abortion. Neges Mahon helped her by providing medication, but victims of sexual violence in Haiti find no protection, nor do their children. On the night of November 2022, the mayor of Tabar, the municipality that has jurisdiction over Hugo Chavez Square, decided to evict the people living there on the streets and close down the square. Civil protection brigadiers and police officers didn't give them much time to take their belongings. Tamara lost the little she had. She said that she got absolutely no help from the state. Some people received 5,000 Haitian gourds, equivalent to about $35, while I received the food stamp, but no money. I don't know why. Last February, Tamara suffered a new blow when her 9-year-old daughter was raped on her way to buy water in Cité Soleil. 2 gang members held her down tightly while the 3rd raped her. Since she was a victim, she has not been the same anymore. She has seemed absent sometimes. She sits alone. When I call her, she reacts only when I'm close to her. Tamara said, at the clinic, she has seen a psychologist, but I still need psychological support for her and support for her schooling. To this day, she hasn't filed any police report for any of the rapes. She says that she doesn't want to face the bandits, that she has been able to manage, even though it is very difficult, especially since she's living back in Cité Soleil. I'm having a hard time. I can't eat. I can't send my children to school, and I can't even cross the entrance to my neighborhood, she said. Every time she needs to go to the AMU or go through that area to exit Cité Soleil, she's terrified. Last time she tried to go through the AMU, despite her fear, she was sexually abused again. Gang members stopped her at 11 o'clock in the morning and forced her to take all her clothes off. I thought they were going to rape me, she said, but they didn't. Instead, they told her to stay face down on the pavement with her legs apart for hours. The sun was hitting hard. They made me lie down with my vagina directly on the ground, which was very hot, Tamara said. They told us they had raped us enough times and that since we have AIDS, they had decided not to. Tamara did not contract AIDS, but for gang members, bringing up sexually transmitted diseases is another way to aggress the women by denigrating them. At around 2 p.m., they told us we could leave and go and infect other thieves, Tamara recalled. Since then, I haven't felt well. I can't bear this life anymore. So that gender-based violence and rape by gang members specifically is very limited in Haiti because attacks so often go unreported. However, a recent UN study and records kept by Doctors Without Borders shed some light on the scale of this scourge, at least in the capital. The study, which surveyed 591 women and girls from in and around Cité Soleil, showed that 80% of the women and girls who participated in the research had been victims of one or multiple forms of sexual violence by one or more perpetrators. In 33% of the cases, the assailants were described as bandits, gang members, or kidnappers. 14% of the victims were only 10 to 18 years old. 84% of the study respondents did not report the attacks. Most said that they believed it would put them in danger from the gangs, including risk of death, that they did not trust the local authorities, fearing retaliation, that they did not know where or how to report, or they felt in general that there was no point because there was no state presence. 40% of the women and girls interviewed said they did not have access to health care after their assault, either because the health services were too far away, reaching them was too dangerous, there was no staff available, even if they did manage to make it there, or they did not want to be identified. The vast majority of those who had access to health care, 83%, said that it had been beneficial. 69% of respondents said that what they needed most was to see a psychologist, a psychotherapist, or psychiatrist. The 3 survivors whose testimonies we just heard have all received support from Neges Maon, one of the few Haitians NGOs assisting victims of rape. Between May 2022 and March 2023, the organization registered 652 cases of women and girls rape victims in just one neighborhood of Port-au-Prince, including Cité Soleil. 14 of them became pregnant as a result of the rape. 8 had complications from self-managed abortions. 90 contracted STDs, and 9 were murdered. In the first 5 months of 2023, the organization assisted 1,005 survivors of sexual violence in Port-au-Prince, almost twice the number they registered during the same period of 2022. But this data is just the tip of the iceberg. It does not reflect the alarming extent of the needs because the NGOs and surveyors have limited access due to the insecurity. Brothers and sisters, though the Pan-African struggle for the right to self-determination and human dignity is a global one, Haiti is the crucible of that struggle. Haiti can only be liberated when our brothers and sisters from Africa, the Caribbean, and all well-thinking nations become our allies in this life and death struggle for the survival of a martyred nation. We ask that you, the people, stand up for the oppressed, men, women, and children of Haiti, and demand that our leaders that allow themselves to be used as black fronts to provide political cover for the continued destruction of the Haitian people by the hegemonic powers. The power in the people is stronger than the people in power. As I was saying, the problem in Haiti is that the government is maintaining this violence against the people because the government is a puppet of the US, the UN, the core group, all of these hegemonic powers that are maintaining the gangs. They're flooding Haiti with guns, and they're the ones. I mean, these are people who couldn't buy a plate of food yesterday, who are walking around with weapons that are more sophisticated than the US Army. Where did they get them? They get them from the government. The US floods the country with guns. Their own studies, I will, the studies from the UN and from the US, I can post the reports about how the guns are coming from the US, and the country is flooded with these weapons of war, and they have destroyed every, production, agriculture, everything. This is something that has been going on over decades. And you have 70% on unemployment of unattached youth. And they know that once they flood the country with guns, this is what would happen. Because now these street gangs rule the country with these weapons. And what we need to do is to support the Haitian people in breaking free from this bondage that the hegemonic powers are imposing on Haiti. Right now, they have put the CARICOM and Kenya as black fronts for military intervention in Haiti. And the military intervention is only masquerading as a humanitarian mission. So they play this arsonist fireman game for decades. They set fire and then they come, supposedly to be the ones that are going to bring the solution. But the reality of it is that the military intervention is to support this illegitimate government and organize some fraudulent elections to put another puppet in power. So the CARICOM leaders have all jumped on board. Kenya has jumped on board because they're being offered all kind of economic advantages, and to act as the front, as the to put a black face on the continued oppression of the Haitian people. So they're turning it now into black on black violence. And because of the fact that they're trying to maintain the moral high ground on the international stage with, vociferating about sovereignty and self-determination for Ukraine, and now for Israel and whatever. So they cannot continue to apply this big stick repression against Haiti openly, right? Because their track record of the US and the UN has been so catastrophic with all of those occupations that they have had over the years. They brought cholera to Haiti that infected over 10,000 people, infected over hundreds of thousands, but killed over 10,000 people with hardly an apology. Haiti never had cholera before. Now it has become endemic. They've created this, they're the ones who have created the violence and put the gangs in power. And so they cannot now come again to be the face of the occupation. So we have to demand that the CARICOM leaders and the African leaders do not accept to be used as black fronts to give political cover to this military intervention that is only going to enforce and support the continued oppression of the Haitian people.
Is there, like a statement already that's drafted that maybe we could use to make those demands to CARICOM? If you can, also let me have that. I've got the email address of everybody that's booked for this conference. I could send it out to them, and we've got an organization called EWF in the chat that's posted to say that they also would want to help where they can, but I definitely want to follow through. I'll speak to Galaxy Radio as well, Galaxy Afriwi, to see, what we can do. But the least I'm thinking we can do, we can offer educational support. We've got to make use of, the online facility, the virtual learning that can happen. I hear, you mentioned several times about the parents wanting their children to get an education, and we have to start with the children. We've got to change their mentality.
I'm saying all that because these women are just the symptoms of the problem. Their problem cannot be fixed without us breaking that bondage that Haiti is under, because the government is the one maintaining that violence, right? Can you imagine that with everything that's going on, he has never said a word? Entire neighborhoods are being burned down. Hundreds of thousands of people are living on the streets. The entire world knows about it. It's being published in, international newspapers. The government has never said a word, said a word about it. He tweets about everything that goes on in the world. If there's an accident of a bus in Cuba, he tweets his condolences. If he tweets congratulations to a president that got elected in another country. He has never said a word about the calamity that's going on in Haiti every day. So
yeah.
I just wanted to give their story, but it's really, we have to break that bondage or they will never be free. But thank you for the offer. As you said, we have to start with supporting these women as much as we can.
Yeah, and support the women, and also, as you say, at a political level as well, be exposing the government, and challenging them about the atrocities. If enough of us are doing it, maybe, we can embarrass them enough to make some change. So we've gone way over, but I just had to let you, complete that presentation.
I've gone over. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We needed to hear this. So thank you so much. And our job now is to do what we can. To do what we can. So Nusi, I can't take your hand right now, but I will come back to you, my brother. I will come back to you. So we've just been hearing there from Myrtha Désulmé firsthand, cases of what's happening. Heartbreaking what's happening. But I hope everyone feels stirred to do something. That's what I'm hoping.